welcome to In Focus. I'm your host, Yesenia Taveras. Have you heard about the APEX program? It's a program providing opportunities to those who have criminal histories and are seeking the expungement or pardon process. Joining me right now is the Program Coordinator Dominique Truitt. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
Definitely.
I know it's a fairly new program, but not that new, and
Right.
I want our people to know about it.
I really appreciate it. It's important that we have that, that exposure. So we've been around for about 6 years now. Well, about 7 years, and I've been in the position for the last 6 years.
So tell us a little bit about it. What is the APEX program for those who are unaware?
So APEX, it stands for Advancement Through Pardons and Expungements. So essentially what we do, we help those that have Delaware state level criminal records. We help them clear the record through the pardon and or expungement process, depending on what they're eligible for.
Okay, and one would probably seek this because of employment opportunities and trying to get a job once they are convicted and getting out of jail.
Of course, as we know, there are many barriers in relation to one having a criminal record. Employment, housing, educational barriers. So the idea is helping them to clear those records so those doors can possibly open for them.
And what is the difference between a pardon and expungement?
That is such a good question. Everyone, they hear that term expungement and they think they're automatically eligible for the expungement, not realizing if you have any adult convictions. And you can ask, well, what is an adult conviction?
Yes.
Because there's a difference between being charged and convicted of something.
Okay.
So if you have any adult convictions, so if you were 18 or older, you pled guilty or you were found guilty of anything, you have to be pardoned by the governor first. And then if pardoned successfully by the governor in Delaware, then you're eligible to petition for an expungement. The biggest difference really primarily for the pardon and an expungement is the pardon doesn't erase or seal anything. What the pardon would do, it would change the disposition where it said guilty on one's record. It would change it from saying guilty to pardoned. So essentially if one was successful with a pardon and they went to apply for a job and that employer conducts a background check, that employer would at least be able to see that they've been pardoned by the governor. They've been forgiven essentially.
Okay.
And also your civil rights are restored. The right to vote, to hold public office, to own a firearm, all of those rights are restored when and if someone is successfully pardoned. Now, the difference of the pardon and the expungement is if you're successful with the expungement, that's the part that seals off the record.
So when you say seal, what does that mean? Because one would think nothing ever gets deleted from your record.
Exactly, and that is very true. Even if one is successfully expunged by the courts, it doesn't go away forever.
Okay.
But if a state background check is conducted, it's sealed off. So if a normal state background check is cleared, it is no longer visible to those employers or licensing agencies that are checking your background.
Okay, and so share with us, what does this process look like? Say, for example,
Yep.
I don't have any, but if I have a conviction and I'm looking for expungement, take me through that process. What would that look like?
So the first step, and our volume is very high, so our first step is to attend one of our new client orientations. Now, I run all of Newcastle County. My colleague, Andrew Duncan, he runs Kent and Sussex County. So attending one of the sessions, so him and I, we can determine whether you're eligible for the process. So we would first find out if you're eligible for the process, and then if we find out that you're eligible for our program, we would see what process you're eligible for. So for example, the criteria for our APEX program, essentially we ask if you have any adult charges that you've at least been out of the system for 3 years. So that means not arrested, not incarcerated, not on probation or parole. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Just a clear 3-year record primarily. No pending charges. We legally wouldn't be able to assist if you had anything pending. And again, I said this is a Delaware state program, so as of now, we can only assist with Delaware state offenses. So if you meet those program criteria, then we would find out if you're eligible for a pardon or eligible for an expungement.
Okay, so you're saying within the last 3 years, as long as you've been cleared.
Correct. And that's in most cases. There's other, exceptions to that rule as well. For example, if someone had charges and they were all dismissed, they would be eligible to petition for an expungement, and it doesn't matter how recent the charge was. I would be able to assist them right away.
Okay.
Yep. So, and again, it's really important that the community realizes the difference of the pardon and the expungement. And even if you're not eligible now, we don't plan on going anywhere, and the laws, they are what they are, and you have the right to petition at some point. So it is, a great idea to still be encouraged. So just kind of going back to your initial question as far as walking through the process. Right. So you attend one of the sessions for our orientation. There's fingerprints you have to get done. Whether one is applying for a pardon or an expungement, you have to get fingerprints done. There's 2 locations to even get that done at. There's Troop 2 in Newark or there's a Blue Hen Mall, the Dover location down in Kent County. So you get fingerprints done. For a pardon, you have to obtain certified court dockets. So the client or the consumer, they would do the legwork in visiting the courts, having to obtain the necessary dockets for every case, they were found guilty of. So there's that step. There's also the application. So again, whether or not it's a pardon or the expungement application, here with Apex, again, we're walking you through the entire process. We're very hands-on. And then for a pardon, there's a pardon hearing. So we submit the application. You have to eventually be scheduled for a hearing that's down in Dover. It's at the Kent County Courthouse. So these pardon hearings, you are literally standing in front of the Board of Pardons or 5 state elected officials. So during that hearing, you have to at least get 3 votes from our state elected officials. So the board would recommend the applicant to the governor, and then essentially the governor would make the final decision.
And it's in essence forgiven.
Exactly. And if applicable, your rights were restored as well.
To vote, which is very important.
Very much so.
Especially
very much
the
so.
next election coming up.
Yes, that's right. Now for the expungement process, a very simple process as we compare it to the pardon process. So you get fingerprints done. There's a petition. We would send it off to the courts and to the Attorney General's office. And there's really no hearings in regards to the expungement process. We receive notifications in the mail. And if successful, the judge sends you an order. It's a signed and sealed, dated order. And it discloses that legally you no longer have to disclose of your arrest record. And again, that's only if you were successful with having your record completely expunged.
Okay. And is there a difference between the convictions and like a felony and then what if you have more than one? Like what if you started a criminal record when you were 10 years old and now you're 45?
Right.
What does that look like?
So if you have a juvenile record, anything under the age of 18, we would find out whether or not you're eligible to petition for a juvenile expungement.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So again, different sets of criteria. It depends on how many adjudications, how long ago it was, how severe the offense was. But 9 times out of 10, if you had a juvenile record and it's been a significant amount of time that has gone by, you are eligible to petition for juvenile expungement. And that would consist of petitioning to the family court or to the SBI. And there's even 2 different types of juvenile expungements. There's mandatory and discretionary. And again, my job is to explain that to one, you know what I mean? Because I know it can be overwhelming at times. But when we talk about a pardon is only for adult convictions.
Okay. And so you can get more than one?
Yes. And I'm sorry, just to even answer that question, it's all or nothing with a pardon. With a pardon, we have to include all of the adult convictions.
Wow.
And then same with juveniles, juvenile records or juvenile expungements. We would include all of those applicable juvenile charges on that one application.
Okay. And this is very important because it's not like driver's license where you get points and then after 3 years or so, 2 more drop.
Right.
3 more drop.
Right.
So talk to us in regards to like just the criminal history record in itself. Like that stays, you're saying it'll get cleared, but there's not like a certain amount of years. If it happened within like the last 10 years, that's what you're still going for. It's always going to show up on your criminal history.
Correct. So the big myth is that once 5 or 7 years go by, that your record goes away. I've received that feedback from a lot of clients. They're like, well, Dominique, I shouldn't have a record because it's been more than 10 years or 7 years. And in Delaware, your record does not automatically go away through time. You literally have to go through the process of the pardon or the expungement to clear that up. Now, when they say that depending on 5 to 7 years, a lot of times they are speaking in regards to the criteria for employers. It used to be sometimes employers would state maybe they only look back 5 years or they only look back 7 years. But we are unfortunately finding that when a background check is conducted, they are literally looking at every single thing that's on one's record. So it is important that even if you had something 20 years ago, and I have so many clients that are now coming to me that are now finding it hard to secure employment, even though they've been in the workfield for years, but they're finding it hard to secure employment because of that charge that was 20 years ago.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yep.
And talk to us a little bit about because we all know crime is in every city.
Right.
And so the reentry process in itself is very hard. But I can only imagine those who don't know about this program, and it's free. So although you guys are not attorneys, but talk to us about how this can really help one person and how you really truly assist them during the whole process from start to end.
Definitely. Well, for one, I genuinely care. You know what I mean? This process was certainly applicable to personal family and friends. So it was important that we provided that resource to everyone. a lot of people just simply want a second chance. They just need that opportunity. I've had clients that told me directly, well, look, Dominique, if I don't get this record cleared, I'm going to have to resort back to my old way of life. Just out of desperation. A lot of times you have these people that need to feed families. They can't afford, or they're even living out on the streets because when they go for housing and applying, even for federal or subsidized housing, they're being denied constantly because of those past, past indiscretions.
Okay.
So all of these barriers that these individuals are faced with, a lot of time the foundational reason is because of a criminal record. And we're not talking about something that happened a couple of years ago. A lot of these times, people have already been reformed. They've already, they've proven themselves to maybe themselves and their family and friends, but now they're waiting for society to kind of give them that chance, those opportunities.
Okay. And I'm just curious, like, how does it work if one, I can only imagine, like, if there was a group of people and one person, murdered someone and the other person was like an accomplice or in there somewhere in the mix, but the charges were dropped and they were not found convicted, but is it still on their record?
Yes, in Delaware, an arrest still appears on the record. So
even if I didn't do it,
even if you did not do it, even if you weren't physically arrested, that date of incident still appears on the record. So if someone was to file charges on you, even if the case was dismissed, unfortunately, it still appears. And unfortunately, I've had individuals that were denied employment because of that simple arrest record, the charge. Because sometimes employers don't understand the difference of the dispositions. They would simply read the charge and not understand that that charge was dismissed.
Okay. And this is a free service, so I'm just wondering, like, when did this come about? Like, why did someone at the Delaware Department of Labor, what happened here? I'm pretty sure there's a need for this demographic.
Definitely.
But share us a little bit about the history of it.
So originally it started in 2012. And I came on board after the fact, so I'm still getting all the facts straight. But it started downstate, 2 individuals. It was a group of individuals in the Dido building, Development of Economic Division. And basically they saw that people were faced with barriers due to the criminal history. So kind of starting off as a pilot, I know AmeriCorps individuals, AmeriCorps Vista individuals were able to kind of hire on, and they were receiving stipends to see how they can kind of, fill that need, that void.
Okay.
Criminal records have always been, around, but the resources, those hands-on resources were missing. So they saw the need down in Dover. Eventually, the Department of Labor picked it up because, of course, the struggle of finding funding. Well, we had this great idea, now who's going to fund it? So grateful enough, the Department of Labor picked it up. Like I said, it started downstate, and then we incorporated up in New Castle County, and that's where I came on board. My predecessor, my mentor, I call him Matthew Rosen, he initially started the program up in New Castle County when it was housed in Department of Labor, and it was through my undergrad with Wilmington University where my advisor came to me and said, hey, Dominique, there's this opportunity at the Department of Labor for this APEX program. My degree is in criminal justice. I was going to school for criminal justice, so it seemed to really kind of fit in line with, my mission, my purpose. I'm like, yes. So I was willing to leave corporate America to go and pursue this dream of really kind of giving back to the community. So it worked out. So since then, it's been housed within the state of Delaware through the Department of Labor, specifically under the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Division. And those are for anyone that has like a qualifying disability. They're eligible to receive services, and unfortunately, even having a record can even be, considered some type of disability. If you were in the system, obviously you have some situation maybe going on where, again, you need that assistance with removing barriers. So.
And share with us that transition, moving from corporate to now really on the other side of the fence and dealing with these people's like true on issues that they're trying to get expunged or pardoned.
Definitely.
So what are some of the experiences you've seen? Talk to us about that side of the job.
the transition. Well, I've always been the type to genuinely love to help others. You know what I mean? I always knew I had that purpose. And it was exciting to be able to give back to the community from where I was from. You know what I mean? It's such a rewarding job. Oftentimes I'll sit in my office with a client and it turns into like this therapeutic session, because if you think about it, and when applying for pardon, you have to provide narratives. You literally have to give details as to what occurred back in the day, you know what I mean, as it related to the charge.
Which can be a trigger too.
Exactly. So oftentimes when a client comes to us, this is their first time in years where they have to relive these experiences. Some people have a record because of substance abuse or domestic violence abuse. You know what I mean? Whatever the case is, and like you said, it can be a trigger. So I make sure we are in a comfortable space. I make sure they know everything is confidential, and I make sure they know that transparency is respected, that ownership is respected by the board and the governor's office, and even with the courts. So it is, like I said, it's very rewarding. I get so much love and appreciation just from the community, and specifically from my clients. And again, you have to love on our community. You have to give these individuals a second chance and make them know that they're in a comfortable and safe environment, because oftentimes they were used to getting those denials. You know what I mean? They were used to getting that rejection, or just people just simply not caring enough for them.
Yeah, it's just a job.
So exactly. And this has always been more than just a job for me. So as busy as we get, as crazy as my caseload is, you may notice that I always do a bunch of outreach. There's always a bunch of people that still need to know about this free service.
That's right. And I actually attended one of the info sessions at the
Which
Wilmington
was
Public
awesome.
Library.
Yes,
I
yes.
initially came to cover the story, and I said, oh no, we need more time for this. This is such an amazing program. And it was fully packed. I was so shocked. It was
that's
filled.
every week. Yep, that's every week.
Yes, talk to us about that. So this is every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday at the Wilmington Public Library on the second floor inside that inspiration space or job center, you can call it, from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. It got to the point where I even leave it on my voicemails. If you are a new client, if you are interested in the program, the only first step is just simply attending one of those sessions.
Okay.
And I'll be able to kind of address everything. I'll confirm whether or not you're eligible. You'll fill out our paperwork to confirm and solidify you'll be an official client of mine. That's just kind of stamping everything, saying we will help you and we will move forward.
And now, is there something they have to do prior to just showing up?
Nope.
They call or send an email? Or
No, there is no appointment necessary for these sessions. I received so many referrals. I received so much interest in this. And honestly, it just got to the point where it was so overwhelming. I'm like, let me make myself accessible once a week. And sometimes, even with other outreach attempts, I'm accessible maybe once or twice a week. But they literally can just show up. Just show up at 10 o'clock and we will handle the rest from there.
And the community, the attendees from the community are very engaged. I almost feel like it's an actual educational session as well, instead of just information.
Yep, it is.
And they learn a lot during this session, and they're able to ask these questions.
Right. Through experience, I've learned to be very detailed, and I know the questions that people are already going to ask, so I make sure to address everything initially. So.
Okay. And now, I know you guys are not attorneys in the program, but do you help those who may need an attorney, seek an attorney? Is there like a referral? How do you help with that process?
So to be honest, no, we don't send any referrals. We don't have any specific relationships or partnerships with attorney. There would be some type of conflict of interest. We do have an awesome partnership with the Public Defender's Office. I'm a part of what's called the Post-Disposition Work Group, where Delaware just in general has this big initiative with juvenile justice reform, you know what I mean, and providing those resources to our individuals that had juvenile records. And of course, there are attorneys, there are public defenders and things of that sort, but no specific partnership with specific attorneys.
Okay, and how about employment? Do you guys help them during that process as well as they're trying to get re-entered into the employment?
I wish I could be a little more hands-on with referring them to specific employers. Now, remember, we're housed within the Department of Labor, so the Department of Labor has a ton of resources. We have the Employment and Training Division, where they're very hands-on with just certain skills as it relates to securing employment. Even through DVR, like I said, if one has a qualifying disability, they're assisting them with trying to find either employment or even with education, with going back to school. So we are in the hub of those resources.
Definitely. So there is a route
that's
somewhere.
That's right.
And now let's go to the actual outcome through your program. Have you seen or successfully seen through your clients to the expungement and pardon process? And if so, what does it look like once you get to the other side?
Oh, I think that's a good question. I could bring like a group of people on here and just kind of give their success stories. I know a lot of times it's a sigh of relief. I've had individuals that are just simply doing it because they want that peace of mind. They want that burden lifted from their shoulders. You know what I mean? Yeah. But what does it look like on the other side?
Because I can only imagine the emotional process
Definitely.
Of putting the narrative together.
Right.
Then showing up to court hearings.
Right.
And then
waiting for the decisions. They feel, they have this sense of pride and they have this sense of accomplishment. Their confidence is boosted because they actually accomplished this great task. And keep in mind, this is probably the most effort they've put into their lives in a while, because maybe they were so discouraged even from applying. But on the other side, I would pray there is success with employment or housing or whatever their purpose was when they initially started the process. I would hope those doors that were closed initially were finally open. And they get that sense of accomplishment, and their family and friends are proud. The community is proud. I'm personally proud of them. So
that's amazing. And what would you like to share with those who are currently watching and might know someone with a criminal history and are kind of like hesitant, because whenever anyone talks about crime,
of course,
there's this
there's a stigma,
stigma,
definitely.
So what could you share just with your experience and your background in this industry, with your criminal justice background? What could you share with those individuals, both juvenile and adults?
There is no reason to be ashamed for any past mistake. You know what I mean? I've seen it all. I've had those that had juvenile records. I've had clients that had 20 separate convictions. From the smallest to the more severe offenses, I've seen it all. But just know that it is so possible. It is very likely, especially here with our climate here in Delaware with criminal justice reform, there's a lot of people pushing for you. There's a lot of people wanting to see that success, wanting to see you really improving the value of your life. So it's so possible. Don't be discouraged and just ask questions.
That's right.
Reach out. Seek these resources because they are available to you. I'm literally throwing the information out. I'm always kind of around the city and the community letting people know about the process and the resources that we provide. So the first step is simply showing up.
Okay. And Dominique, I'm just curious, I got into the field of broadcast journalism because I love to tell the stories that are untold.
Right.
And you went into this criminal justice industry, this field. I'm just curious, is there something that personally happened to you and your family or friends, or is it just something else that inspired you?
That's a good question. So it's funny, my freshman year, I started with mass communications and journalism. So I just knew I loved to talk, right? And I love to get the stories out there. But there was an incident that occurred in my life that was something that was kind of devastating. I lost an uncle, my only uncle, to gun violence, and he was a known individual within the city of Wilmington. So I remember even just in my younger years, that triggered something in me. And I'm like, well, what can I do? So when I was presented with the opportunity to kind of give back in this way where I saw that so many people are being faced with barriers, I'm like, okay, now is the right time. Now is the right time. So I will say it was definitely in regards to just family. Like I said, just growing up within the city of Wilmington, sometimes just being surrounded by violence, but also knowing these people individually, knowing that they're good people. That just need those opportunities, that sometimes just need that second chance for someone to tell them that it's going to be okay despite whatever occurred, despite whatever mistake. So criminal justice was just right in line for me. I considered, becoming an attorney, so this was kind of the next best thing, and this is still just the beginning for me.
It is, even though you're 6-7 years in, it's really
definitely
still the beginning. And you've already made an impact on so many people's lives.
Definitely.
But talk to us with your experience living in the city. Unfortunately, in many cities here in our country, gun violence is now the norm. Right. Not only just on the streets that we live on, but also within schools, going to concerts. So it's like this new norm for our society, and unfortunately there's thousands of incidents that don't ever get reported to the media. Right.
Now, my specific story, it doesn't consist of a bunch of gun violence. I grew up in a good family in a nice neighborhood. Obviously, Delaware is so small, so even though I may have grew up in a nice neighborhood, the bad parts were just right around the corner. And of course, I had family and friends that were affected directly. Even the situation with my uncle, we never knew the type of lifestyle he was living. It was only after he passed that we realized what was going on, and I was still young and kind of naive, you know what I mean? But I went to a great school, had a great mother to guide me. She made sure that I didn't fall, you know, victim to what was going on within our community and our surroundings.
Right.
So I will definitely say I'm grateful to God that I had that positive upbringing. But still being close enough to our community and being, you know, kind of privy to what was going on. I think I had a good balance, you know.
And it's important too just to share that we are people and things happen all the time.
That's right.
I mean, I was grown up in a nice community, and even just up the street from my childhood home, someone was murdered. And it was just amazing to have that knock on the door and be like, wait a second, what's going on here? Like, why is there an officer? But just to actually go through that experience, it really changes you.
It does.
And that's the amazing part for me, is you don't know what one goes through until you've actually experienced it yourself.
And that's how I felt even when my uncle passed. And he seemed to live a life where we loved the cars he drove, you know what I mean? And he would always come and give gifts and big hugs. And then to find out after his death that he was living this secret life to us, he was protecting us essentially. I'm like, wow. So me to know that he was such a great person, such a great uncle, but then to see that, wow, he had another side too. And everyone has different sides, you know what I mean?
Right.
Some people just get away with some of their indiscretions. And I always kind of joke with my clients saying that, like, do not feel bad. There's some innocent people out here that have just not gotten caught.
Right, exactly.
So no one has the room
very
to
good
judge.
With getting away.
That's all it is. That's all it is. So yeah.
And that's why you're the perfect fit for the Apex program, because you've gone through the experience.
Right.
You really care about the people that you're actually helping.
Right.
And you're seeing it through.
Definitely.
That's amazing. Any last departing words you would like to share with us before we go?
No, and like I was saying to you earlier, I truly appreciate the exposure. Information is key. Information is so powerful. So that's the mission I've recently been on top of taking care of all of our clients. But I really do just appreciate this information being broadcasted in this way. So thank you for having me.
Oh, our pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dominique. As I always say, information changes situations.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
You. And on behalf of all of us here at WITN 22, we'd like to say thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. I've been your host, Yesenia Taveras.